brought to you in part by The Balanced Palate. AFIA Sports Training, committed to developing the sporting potential of future players in the U.S., UK, and across the world. And the Pig and Whistle on West 36th Street. Hey everybody, welcome back to Rugby Wrap-Up. Matt McCarthy at the Fantasy Sports Network, Studio 34 in New York City, talking rugby, and we are talking November Test rugby. It doesn't get any better than it does now, and ladies and gentlemen, we have a fabulous cast here in the studio and on the monitor. To my left, proxy for Steve Lewis, Mr. Martin Pengelly. He's actually acting like he's not the proxy, so we'll see what he's got to say. Mr. Kees Lensing, the rugby god from South Africa, Namibia, depends on when you ask him, but he's also a coach here with Rugby United New York. And, of course, our South African living in Denver, Mr. Barry Herbert.
Thank you, Matt. Good to be here again.
All right, Barry, we interviewed Gary Gould, the head coach of Team USA, and he was not happy with the two of us picking Samoa last week. I'll give you that, but he did call you, as a fellow South African, he said a useless Saffer.
Well, that's great coming from Gary because he's not even the best coach from his high school, Matt. He's in the USA currently.
All right, how to win friends and influence people, right? Is that what that one's, Marty? Okay. All right, gentlemen, let's get right to it. All right, we had a big weekend of rugby in international test rugby, the official window. Martin, let's start with you. Let's start with England versus New Zealand. Offsides or not offsides?
Can I say I think it was offside, but I don't think it should have been called? Can I get away with that? I think he was fractionally offside, but I think, as far as I understand the directive from World Rugby, the TMO had no business doing what he did, as far as I understand it. Plus, I'm English and sad.
All right, so factually, you're saying he was offside.
Actually, I think I couldn't. Everything I tried to do,
like the Fonz trying to say I'm sorry.
I regret it. I won't say I'm sorry. Everything I tried to. Every time I watched it, I had a different reaction. The overriding thing for me was that I'm English, so I'm biased. When I thought it was a try, I hit the roof in the office where I was watching it, punching my fist and making a couple of Americans quite frightened because I was so happy. And they called it back. Yeah, I think he probably was a touch offside, but Rob Kitson from our newspaper wrote a very good column about it. It's these fractional calls that are called back and called back. I would rather we didn't have them. And as far as I understand, I'm not even sure I've understood it correctly because it's World Rugby politics. The directive was for TMOs not to do that, and the TMO did it. So I don't know. It was very frustrating. I mean, the salient point is what Clive Woodward said, and I don't normally agree with anything he says. England had chances to win that game anyway. It didn't take them, and the line-out fell apart. They have lots of reasons they didn't win. So it does go further than that. But you
didn't score after scoring 15 points.
Yeah, and they didn't drop a goal at the end. They crabbed sideways and then forced a pass. It was monumentally painful. The debate is great. That's what everyone likes about the game. Obviously I'm English. I'd rather it hadn't been called and that try had stood because I think Sam Underhill is a startlingly good, promising player. And
well, he certainly schooled Brett. He's Barrett. I mean, he just
that was wonderful to see. That was sort of odd.
Hide and seek in the foreground.
Yeah, and a sort of punch. Naturally, after those 80 minutes, a punch-drunk sidestep, whatever you'd call it. He sort of staggered and beat him. It was wonderful to see. That's part of the reason I hit the roof, pumping my fist and shouting things. And my two American editors were like, ugh, what's got into him? It was an amazing moment, and it's a real shame it got called back for a TMO thing. I'd like to think I'd say that if an All Black had done it to England. I probably wouldn't.
So the answer was he said factually the guy was offside. So as a player in those situations, and I was going by Courtney Lawes' reaction. When the call was made, he kind of looked up in the air, kind of knowingly a little bit. Like, you've been in situations where you've had calls in big games. What's that like as a player? Did you know it, or it's going to come, or?
He definitely noticed. I think he knew he was a little bit offside. And if you look at it, I've also looked a couple of times at the footage. I believe he was offside. But on that point, I want to say there was a lot other offsides that have never been called. Offsides that have been way worse than this have never been called. The only problem is this offside here was a game changer. This call here was a game changer. And I like to, again, Steve Hansen said after the game, he's glad that the refs had the courage to go through with the call. So, like you said, it's depends on what jersey you got on here. If you got a New Zealand jersey, you're happy that the ref had the guts to make this call. If you got an England jersey on, you would say, man, I've known many other offsides that's never been called, but this one cost us this game. If you go a week ago, South Africa was in the same situation, fair and square. There was no arms tackle. South Africa was moaning. The score stays 12-11.
Right.
And this weekend, the score stays 15-16. So that's the game, and that makes the game interesting. And I think that's what showed why rugby is different than any other sport. We can argue about it afterwards, but at the end of the day, we accept what the referee's decision is. And next week, we're back on the field and we just play harder. So, yeah, and I want to also say England had more than enough chances to win that game. To be 50-0 up and dominating the first couple of minutes, they should have definitely kept their composure. And and the lineouts, they definitely, the last couple of lineouts, when they lost, that cost them the game. There was more than enough opportunities to seal the game off. So.
Well, that gets what player I've been pretty impressed with is George Cruz with his grit, determination. He went down with the calf injury in that match, and that could have been a pivotal moment for England in that match as well. I think it was like the 60th minute or something along those lines.
Yep. And afterwards, a apparent refusal to consider throwing somewhere where Retallick wasn't.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is what I probably would have done in my high school days. It's like, well, the big guy from the other team is taking our ball, so let's throw it somewhere else.
Right.
They didn't. I don't. These things happen.
Barry, I'm guessing that you're going to probably say that he was offsides.
You're right, Matt. He was. He was only just offsides, but he was offsides. So I believe the call was correct. But again, just going back to the result there, 16-15, I think, to the All Blacks. They've squeaked in again, Matt. I mentioned last time on the show these get-out-of-jail-free cards, and they got another one. So, this is, I don't know how many games in a row now for the All Blacks where they're squeaking in by 1-2 points. The referees and the TMO decisions are going in their favor. How many more of these have they got, Matt? And I'm not suggesting, like some people have suggested, that they get the rub of the green with the
Are
referees.
you suggesting they get the rub of the green?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm just suggesting that they cut it very, very fine. And they were in trouble again in that Test match, and again they've come through. But they're not going to keep doing this. I mean, I think Ireland have got a real shot this weekend. So we'll get to that in a little bit.
Let's talk about Ireland. Let's leapfrog a little bit. Ireland played Argentina, tough team, right? A lot of people underestimating Argentina, just how good they are. Specifically, I'm reading, people's comments about how the Irish center pairing got schooled and it was the worst in the history of Ireland. And I'm thinking, the Argentinians have a pretty good center combination, and they've got guys that are emerging and play. Oh, because you don't know their name, it's not on the tip of your tongue, doesn't mean that they're not very capable players.
You have a frustrating game against Argentina in the start or any point in an awesome series. Shouldn't be anything surprising. Beating Argentina and being unhappy with the way you play is kind of what happens in November and in the autumn, because Argentina are good, and especially in Europe, the European pundits, they don't see much.
Oh, definitely. And again, I also think this weekend Ireland probably just from previous performances, Ireland probably got. If we thought in the beginning of November which team got the biggest chance to beat the All Blacks in the Northern Hemisphere, it would have been Ireland. I would have backed Ireland. So I think if New Zealand was struggling last weekend, this weekend is even going to be definitely a more harder game for them. So they'll have to step up a little bit this weekend.
Yeah. Wales, edging. What, you guys shaking your
I
heads?
don't discuss Wales.
Barry, let's go to Wales. This is your baby, I would imagine, because I would think that you'd like watching Wales beat Australia for some reason.
To be fair, Wales have been playing pretty well, and Australia have not. So this is not entirely unexpected. The Australian squad has been quite depleted. They haven't been playing great rugby, and this was on the cards. So well done to Wales. They've got a result, and they've got a Southern Hemisphere scalp. In fact, if you look at all the results, you'll see it was quite evenly spread between the Northern and Southern Hemisphere, which wasn't the case a few years ago where the Southern Hemisphere just dominated. So, congrats to Wales there. They'll be very, very happy with that result, but not entirely unexpected.
And how about, have you been eating a lot of poutine and foie gras since the victory in Paris for your boys?
That one looked like it was sliding away from the Springboks. But a terrific finish. And I thought they upped the tempo beautifully in the last 20 minutes, did the Springboks, after a real grind for pretty much 60 minutes, where France looked the better team. So it was a really, really strong finish from the Springboks. And yes, we're very happy with the result. I don't think we played particularly well, the Springboks, but they did finish strong, which obviously was the difference. And at a couple of tries disallowed there, I don't know if you saw the Cheslin Colby incident with what looked like a high tackle in the process of Colby scoring. They dislodged the ball. Nobody said anything about that. They did check it on the TMO, but I think a penalty try could have been given there for that high shot round the neck, dislodging the ball in the motion of scoring. So, South Africa were fortunate probably to win there. France played pretty well, but they finished stronger. And if that's what you got to do in rugby, you got to finish the game, and that's what the Boks did this week.
Yeah, and you know what I like the most is Rassie is becoming one of my favorite coaches because in that series, first of all, showing the tackling dummy thing with Farrell, you got to like that. But then also, he's down pitch side in that last minute or so when the Springboks are playing the advantage and they seemingly score a try, but he was offside and they come back and he's got a big smile on his face as he's standing there instead of like tearing his hair out.
I think he was grinding his teeth as well, Matt. I mean, I don't think he was. I think that may have just been for the cameras, the smile. I'm sure he was fuming. Nigel Owens had a look at it. Again, massive pressure on these referees, and I don't think they're always getting it right on the TMO. And in that case, I think there was definite cause, and Rassie had, he was smiling, but I can promise you inside he would have been fuming because that was around the neck. The ball gets dislodged, and Colby, he's probably going to score there. So it's a penalty. My understanding is that then becomes a penalty try. So anyway, the result went the Boks' way. Bongi and Bonambi getting the final score there, 85th minute this time. So another dramatic finish to the game, and it was a really good finish.
All right, I got to go back to the Wales match just to bug you a little bit, but Gareth Anscombe with an unbelievable play defensively to knock the ball out of a would-be try scorer for the Wallabies in what turned out to be a 9-6 nail-biter, right? I mean, that's just a great defensive play by a guy that's now on the radar to be the man for Wales, right?
Again, I think that game, Australia made a lot of mistakes. Yeah. There were so many handling errors. They build. As soon as they get into that goal zone or that 22 area where they need to finish it, then just some unfortunately knock on or drop the ball or a bad pass. So, again, Wales beat them fair and square, but, man, Australia got a little bit of problems, I think, in their house.
Yeah. And, the other intriguing matchup was Italy hosting Georgia, right? But it was intriguing because everybody's crying about the fact that Georgia should be in the Six Nations rather than Italy, and in the last 3 test matches that they've played against each other, Italy has won. Barry?
Well, we called this one wrong.
I didn't call it wrong. I picked Italy because of Sergio Perez being on this show.
Yes, your man crush on him. Yes, I found that quite amusing. Italy have got home here, and they needed it. They were obviously desperate, backs to the wall, and they've put in a performance good enough to beat a Tier 2 nation. So, I don't know if that's progress for them, but the win, they will take it. Maybe we overstated Georgia's capabilities a bit there, but the Italians will be delighted with the win.
And Scotland taking it to Fiji. They must have found out in the changing room that Stuart Hogg was going to be playing in England in the Premiership, and they just went crazy on the Fijians.
I'd be surprised if that was the full motivation for the game. He's signed for Exeter, right? We better try very hard. No, but it's...
Yeah, I could see that logic.
Yeah, that game, what I saw of it, the Fijians started strong and Scotland came on stronger, which is a thing you'll see quite a lot in such games. And Scotland have got momentum, as you put it now.
Momentum is a key element in these matches. Gentlemen, we're going to take a quick commercial break, but we'll be right back with more November Test Talk here on Rugby Wrap-Up. Stay with us.
Been blind since I was 4, and I've never seen a beer commercial or a beer label. None of that stuff influences me. I drink beer because of the taste. And my beer is Pabst Blue Ribbon. It has the taste and the flavor.
What do you think's on the label?
I think there's a naked woman riding on a unicorn, jumping over fire. Oh, that's good beer.
If you're in New York City and want to watch some great rugby, have some great food, and some great times, go to the world's best rugby pub, the Pig and Whistle on West 36th Street.
All right, we are back. Matt McCarthy with Mr. Barry Herbert on the monitor, Mr. Kees Lensing to my right, and Mr. Martin Pengelly to my left. Gentlemen, we'd be remiss if we didn't read Steve Lewis's comments about last weekend. I'll read them for you because I know that you were going to do them in a Roger Moore accent, and he said that would start World War V. So, number one, Steve Lewis says, Test rugby in this November has been magnificent, enthralling, physical, exciting clashes and nail-biting finishes, but we have also seen major refereeing inconsistencies, and he would be harumphing with his fist, the Champagne Socialist, in the injustice of this, and controversies. Case in point, the red card for USA's debutante prop Megan Rahm in comparison to the one of Harriet Orrell, and Pat Clifton nailed this with his little Twitter comparison there, so check it out. Inevitable that Hogg would move on. Glasgow simply do not have the financial clout to compete in the prevailing market. The only surprise is he opted for the smaller market Exeter rather than the big dollar boys of European rugby in London and Paris. Yes, as a player, you could probably empathize with this move, but you can probably imagine what the fans in Glasgow are going through right now.
Yeah, it's always difficult for a player, especially if you have been with a club for a very long time and you got your fan base there. The fans never want you to leave, but the player also, he knows that he's coming to the end of his career, and maybe
this guy's not coming to the end of his career.
Yeah, but your
He's
career,
still pretty young.
Your career is limited, and unfortunately, you need to get as much as possible income out of it, and maybe he feels like he reached a stage in this in Glasgow now that they don't have the potential to win cups or trophies, and he really wanted to just a change of environment. And I know a lot of guys make changes of clubs because he think he's going to win. You have the opportunity to win a premiership competition or maybe another competition if he moves to another club. And there can be internal problems as well. We never know about it. Maybe between him and the coaching staff, or just there's a million reasons for a player to leave a club. But it's never nice for the supporters to see a guy of his stature leaving. Yeah.
But so, if Exeter loses on a match, does Stuart Hogg become Scottish? And when they win, is he British, like Andy Murray?
The Andy Murray equation, yeah. No, I don't think so. Especially not. Exeter, there's a very good column that actually our friend, the Champagne Lizard, pointed out on Twitter by Jamie Lyle, who's a Scottish writer, wrote a very good column about why Hogg has moved on, including we were talking about making the most of your career. He's had bad facial injury with the Lions. He's been battered around a bit. He's 26. He's still quite young, but he's very experienced. Time to make some money.
Yeah.
Exeter, they're not the big champagne payers, but they are a good, very well financially sound, well-run club. But Jamie Lyle's column, which was making the good point, is that the Exeter culture is, by all reports, I've not ever been there, an excellent team culture, a culture where players thrive, players enjoy themselves, players improve. Rob Baxter, the coach, is one of the best English coaches there is. I mean, he may well leave relatively soon after Eddie Jones and become England coach, which might change things, but it's
you have a breaking story here on Rugby Wrap Up that you know something from The Guardian? Knows?
He's in the mix for taking over England after Eddie Jones leaves after the World Cup. I mean, we used to say that about Jim Malander every year when they thought there'd be a change, and he never made it. So maybe it'll never happen. But it's still, he's that highly rated as a coach. I mean, as a rugby move for someone like Stuart Hogg, who is an exceptional rugby player and obviously a player who thinks about his game and so on, like players do, it makes sense.
Yeah.
To do that.
Barry, you want to weigh in on any of this stuff? You got guys that are. Well, you have teams that have left Super Rugby from South Africa coming up to the Pro 14. Is it bug you, or you understand it? What's your take?
This is part of the game, and it's a hard reality, and it's pretty much the same in any other professional sport, guys. So we have to get used to it, and it's something that's going to continue.
Just to use this as a segue, I think after losing to the United States in Houston, Hogg needed a change because he was the captain of that team, and they lost. So that's just me. I'm just saying, I'm just taking it back to America here. And with that, I want to segue into our last two matches of last weekend that we want to touch upon. First, let's go to that big one, Namibia versus Russia.
Namibia versus Russia, not the expected. I always knew Namibia is going to be a little bit under pressure because the Russian team, I think they just play a lot more competitive games than Namibia. They lost 47-20. This weekend is Spain. So hopefully it looked like what I can follow on social media. They had a good week of training and the guys are prepared and they're ready for Spain. So honestly, I hope for them, it's just a build-up for them and to give them a little bit more experience before the World Cup. But yeah, it's going to be tough for them anyway.
What if the phone rang tomorrow? They need a backup prop with it that knows a little bit about coaching.
This guy is out. I'm definitely not there to play. Definitely not.
Okay, fair enough. And we had, of course, the United States beating Samoa in a unbelievable up and down match, losing Blaine Scully in like the 32nd minute with a black eye / general face swelling, nose stuff. You know, and I was watching a Samoan feed, and it had the announcers doing the game from Auckland, and the game clock on the feed said 74 minutes when actually it was at the 80th minute, and Hooley is lining up for the penalty kick that's going to put them in the lead, and I'm thinking, okay, they're going to be in the lead. It's a precarious lead with 5 minutes left in the match, but in actuality, the hooter had sounded. This was the final play of the match. So he makes the kick, and he's going crazy. They're getting hugs, and the broadcaster, the Kiwi, says, "No, he seems quite happy." Like not having. He's like, "What? He made a kick finally. This is the reaction."
I watched the same feed for the same reasons, and it was fitting for the game. It was a very strange game of rugby. That
Yeah,
one.
it was.
It was riddled with mistakes.
Yeah.
Both teams, I would imagine, rusty. Both teams.
Well, you had
untried
you had a
combinations.
19-year-old scrum half for Team USA.
Mm-hmm.
You had Will Hooley who only played 15 for Team USA coming at fly. You had the introduction of a 19-year-old prop, and
Yeah, you have all that happening, and they won.
And they won.
That says something to me about the team culture now.
Yeah.
In the past couple of years, I've said before, Gary Gould coming in doing an excellent job by the look of it.
Yeah.
Mitchell and Veal before that doing an excellent job because the run of good form started last year, which is always needs to be remembered.
All right, so let's go ahead and start doing our predictions for next weekend, okay? USA versus Romania. And give me a point differential.
USA by 10.
USA by 10.
It's going to be a tough game. I know Romania got a South African coach now there, and they smashed Portugal this last weekend. Romania beat them quite far. I think it's going to be a closer game. Maybe USA by 5, 6.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's going to be close.
All right.
Matt, I'm going to go with a USA victory here to keep Gary Gould on sides a little bit. They should get home here, Matt. I'm not sure of Romania's form right now, but I'm going to go with the US by 10 points here.
Samoa is a much better team than Romania. The Maori All Blacks are a much better team than Samoa, one could argue, right?
The Maori All Blacks didn't do that great against, what was it, Brasilia?
Brazil, yeah.
Yeah, not a big score. So that's why I've got my doubts.
All right, we could have this argument all day long. If they wanted to, they could field a team that would be one of the top-ranked teams in international Test rugby.
Oh,
right?
I agree. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna pick Team USA by 15 points in this match. All right, and guys, I know that there's a lot of rugby going on for you to watch, but between that, what you can do is escape the ordinary and enjoy dance and culture of the Mediterranean. This weekend at the 15th anniversary celebration of the Mosaic Dance Theater Company, Manhattan Movement Arts Center, 7:30 Saturday. All right, we'll see you there. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of time. Barry, it was great to see you from South Africa via Denver, and Mr. Kees Lensing, our Namibian, who is now coaching 17 teams here in New York. Mr. Martin Pengelly of the Guardian, always welcome, and proxy to Steve Lewis when whenever we determine that. And I'm Matt McCarthy. And on that note, we are out of time. For Rugby Wrap-Up here at the Fantasy Sports Network, Studio 34 in New York City. We'll see you next time.